behind the hay. Don't make a sound.
The first scream didn't sound human. Jake Marston reined in his horse, the desert wind swallowing the echo almost as soon as it rose. The sky was still dark, the first hint of dawn bleeding over the rim of the prairie. He'd been riding the far fence line, same as every morning, when that cry tore through the quiet like a knife through burlap. Then came another, this time a rasping, broken plea. "Please, help." Jake kicked his boots against the stirrups and bolted toward the sound. Sagebrush tore at his coat as he cut across the uneven field, scanning the ground. For a moment he thought coyotes had dragged someone off. Then he saw her. A woman in a torn black habit lay half buried in the dust, her fingers still clawing weakly at the earth as if trying to pull herself forward. Her face bloodied, bruised, and streaked with dirt, was far too young for that kind of injury. And her eyes, wide, terrified, darting at every movement around her. Jake jumped from the saddle before the horse fully stopped. "Miss, you hear me?" he asked, kneeling beside her. She flinched, curling in on herself. No, don't take me back. Please, he'll kill me." Jake froze. He'd heard fear before real fear. Whatever chased her wasn't imaginary. "All right," he said softly. "Ain't nobody tacking you anywhere. You're safe now." Her breathing hitched. She tried to speak, but the sound caught in her throat. When she finally forced the words out, they were barely a whisper. "It's the mission. They're lying to everyone. Sheriff Collins' Father Whitmore. They're not men of God." Jake felt the air shift. Collins, Whitmore. Two names powerful enough to own half the county and feared enough to rule the rest. The woman's trembling hand clamped weakly on his sleeve. "You have to believe me," she whispered. "They'll burn anyone who speaks. They burned her. The English sister. They'll do it again." Jake didn't know who she was talking about, not yet. But he knew one thing. Whatever nightmare she crawled from, it wasn't the kind that healed on its own. He lifted her carefully into his arms. "Name's Jake Marston," he said as he carried her toward his horse. "And whoever's after you, they just picked the wrong rancher to cross." Behind them, the prairie wind howled like something angry waking up. The sun was just clearing the ridge when Jake pushed open the door to his ranch house, carrying the wounded nun inside. Dust swirled in the golden light behind him, but he didn't bother shutting the door. Every second mattered now. He laid her on the old leather sofa and grabbed a canteen from the shelf. She was conscious, barely, but her eyes kept drifting in and out of focus, as if she were still running in her mind. "Drink slow," Jake said, holding the rim to her lips. The water hit her throat and she coughed violently, then tried again. Color began to return to her cheeks. She wiped her mouth with a shaking hand, attempting to compose herself, though fear still clung to every part of her. "I'm Sister Eliza," she murmured. "I figured you were part of the mission," Jake replied. Didn't figure the mission was the kind of place folks had to run from. At that, her expression tightened. She struggled to sit up, leaning heavily against the sofa arm. "You don't understand," she said. "They took vows, yes, but not the kind anyone should take. Father Whitmore and Sheriff Collins, they've built something foul. They use God's name like a shield, something to hide behind while they do whatever they want." Jake felt a familiar anger stir. He'd seen powerful men hide behind uniforms and titles before. He'd buried friends because of men like that. What exactly did they do? He asked. Eliza swallowed hard. The English sister Margaret. She was new, innocent. She started noticing things. Questions about church funds, about the girls placed in the mission's care, about late-night visits from the sheriff. Eliza's breathing quickened. She confronted Whitmore, and 2 days later, they said she fell ill, but I saw them. I saw them dragging her out behind the mission barn at night. Heard her pleading, demanding they tell the truth. She squeezed her eyes shut. They silenced her, and they were coming for me next. Jake's jaw tightened. You're saying Collins is in on all this? He does the threats, the disappearances. Whitmore tells the town everything's fine. And the people believe him, because why wouldn't they? He's the man holding their Sunday prayers. Jake paced the room, boots creaking on the wood. Collins was more than a sheriff. He was a man who viewed fear as a currency. And Whitmore, if half of what she said was true, the town had no idea what monster stood at their altar. Eliza looked up at him, voice trembling. If they discover I escaped, they won't stop. Not until I'm dead. Jake stopped pacing. Then we make damn sure they don't find you first. His voice was steady, but a shadow crossed his thoughts. Because if Collins learned she was with him, the hunt wouldn't just be for her. It would be for them both. Eliza drifted into an uneasy sleep, but Jake didn't. He stood by the window, watching the empty road curl toward town like a dry riverbed. The silence outside wasn't comforting. It felt staged, like something holding its breath. He lit the stove, made coffee, and kept a rifle leaning against the table leg. Not because he wanted trouble, but because trouble had a habit of finding men like him the moment they tried to do something right. By mid-morning, a thin column of dust rose on the horizon. Jake stiffened. Only one thing made a trail like that: horses moving fast. Too fast for ranch hands, too direct for travelers, and far too early for the mail coach. He stepped onto the porch and shaded his eyes. 3 riders. One of them rode with the lazy confidence of a man who believed the land belonged to him. Sheriff Collins. Jake's pulse steadied. Fear didn't do a man any good now. The rider stopped 10 yards from the porch. Collins tipped his hat, though the gesture carried no courtesy. The other 2 deputies fanned out slightly, hands too close to their holsters to be casual. "Mornin', Marston," Collins said, voice smooth as a greased hinge. "Heard someone saw you ridden the north fields before sunrise. Figured I'd check on you." Jake folded his arms. "Fence needed mendin'. Didn't know that was something you'd be interested in." Collins smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. "Funny thing. Mission reported a missing sister today. Fragile little thing. Seems she wandered off during the night." He leaned forward in the saddle. "You didn't happen to see anyone out there, did ya?" Jake held his stare without blinking. "Saw a whole lot of dust. Saw my cattle. Didn't see none." That earned a slow, thoughtful nod. Collins chewed the inside of his cheek, studying. Jake the way a coyote studies a closed chicken coop looking for weak boards. "Well," Collins drawled, "if you do see something, you let me know. Father Whitmore's awful torn up about it. Says she weren't in the right state of mind. Might hurt herself if she ain't found." Jake didn't answer. He didn't trust what might slip out if he did. Collins tugged his reins, preparing to turn away. "Be careful out here, Marston. Lots of strange things happening lately. Best keep an eye open." As the riders galloped off, Jake waited until the dust settled before he exhaled. He walked back inside. Eliza slept fitfully, unaware of the danger that had just stopped at his door. Jake set the rifle on the table. They didn't have much time now. Jake didn't wake Eliza until the sun had begun its slow crawl toward evening. She stirred with a start, eyes wild, hands grasping at the air as though still running from the shadows that chased her through the night. "It's all right," Jake said, steadying her shoulder. "You're safe. For now." The last 2 words hung in the air like dust motes light, but impossible to ignore. He handed her a piece of cornbread and a cup of water. She ate slowly, as if each bite reminded her she was still alive. But even in her exhaustion, her mind stayed sharp, darting back to fear at the smallest creak of the house. "We can't stay here," Jake said at last. Collins came by. Her hand froze midair. "Did he see me?" "No, and he ain't sure you came this way. But he's suspicious now. And suspicion is enough for a man like him." Eliza pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "He won't stop. Not until he finds me or kills the truth." Jake nodded. "Which is why we're moving you to the barn. Loft up there's hidden. No one finds it unless they're looking real hard." They waited until dusk, when the sky dimmed and shadows stretched long across the ranch. Jake carried supplies: first blankets, water, a lantern with a cloth over it to dull the light. Then he helped Eliza walk, supporting her weight as they crossed the yard. Each step seemed to strain her, though she refused to ask him to slow. The barn door groaned softly as Jake pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled of hay, dust, and old wood, safer than the open world, but still too exposed for comfort. "I'll get you settled," Jake said, climbing the ladder first. He reached down and helped her ascend, one trembling step at a time, until she collapsed softly onto the straw-covered boards. Eliza looked around the dim loft. This will do." "Thank you." Jake knelt beside her. "Tell me more about what they're hiding. The more I know, the better I can help." For a long moment she said nothing. Then, her voice barely above a breath, she began. "Margaret kept records. She wrote everything she saw: the bruises on the younger girls who came to the mission, the money Whitmore hid in separate ledgers, the night Collins brought, a man beaten half to death to the back entrance." Eliza's eyes glistened. "She made copies, hid them. Whitmore found out." Jake's heart thudded. "Copies? Where?" "I don't know," Eliza whispered. "But Margaret said if anything happened to her, the truth would still be found." Jake leaned back, mind racing. Records, ledgers, proof. They weren't just fighting fear. They were fighting evidence someone had died to protect. Night settled over the ranch like a heavy blanket, muffling sound and thought alike. Jake remained in the lower part of the barn, leaning against a support beam, lantern dimmed to a faint orange glow. Above him, Eliza lay curled in the loft, finally resting, not peacefully, but at least still. Jake sorted through her words again and again, turning them over the same way a rancher checks a stone stuck in a horse's shoe. Margaret's hidden records. A trail of corruption Whitmore and Collins couldn't afford anyone finding. If copies existed, someone else might know. Someone Margaret trusted. Someone still alive. Jake suddenly stood straighter. There was one person. Old Carson, the former mission caretaker. He'd been dismissed months ago quietly, almost secretly. Folks thought he left for health reasons, but Jake remembered seeing the man limping through town with a bandage at his temple. The kind of wound that didn't come from old age. If Margaret confided in anyone at the mission, it would have been him. Jake climbed the ladder and whispered, "Eliza." She stirred, blinking down at him with tired, hollow eyes. "You mentioned Margaret hid copies. Do you know if she ever spoke to Carson?" "The old caretaker." Eliza's breath caught. "Carson." "Yes. He helped her more than once. She trusted him. But after she confronted Whitmore, he disappeared. People said he left town." Jake shook his head. "He didn't leave. He's living near the river canyon. Barely talks to anyone." Hope flickered across her features, thin, fragile, but real. "Jake, if he has the records, then Whitmore and Collins fall," Jake finished. "But we gotta reach him first." A sudden creak outside snapped both their heads toward the barn door. Jake killed the lantern instantly. Darkness swallowed everything. Bootsteps, quiet, too careful. Jake's hand slid to the revolver on his belt. Eliza whispered from above, "Is it them?" "Don't move," Jake murmured. He crept toward the thin gap in the boards. Someone moved outside, silhouette low, deliberate, scanning the barn's perimeter. Not a rancher, not a traveler, a deputy. Jake recognized the outline of the hat, the stance, the cautious way he circled like a wolf, sniffing out a rabbit hole. The deputy paused, listening, then stepped toward the door. Jake cocked his revolver silently. The barn held its breath. The deputy tugged on the handle. Once, twice, a test. Then, satisfied or maybe unsure, he backed away. After several long seconds, the footsteps faded into the night. Jake didn't move for a full minute. Only after silence returned did he climb to the loft. "They know," Eliza whispered. "They're searching everywhere." Jake nodded grimly. "Then we ride at dawn. We find Carson. And we find the truth before they find you." Outside, the wind picked up, brushing against the barn like a warning. Tomorrow, the hunt would begin. And not everyone would survive it. Jake saddled the horses long before dawn touched the horizon. The stars still hung overhead, sharp, cold, unblinking, watching as he worked in near silence. Only the soft snort of his mare and the whisper of leather straps broke the stillness. Eliza waited inside the barn, wrapped in Jake's old coat, her hands trembling, not from the morning chill but from the weight of what they were about to do. When Jake stepped inside, she rose immediately. "Is it time?" she asked. Jake nodded. "We need to reach Carson before Collins figures out where he is. Or worse, gets to him first." Eliza swallowed hard. "If they knew Margaret trusted him, they'd make sure he never talked," Jake finished grimly. He helped her mount the smaller chestnut mare, gentle, steady, less likely to jolt her already bruised body. She winced as she swung her leg over the saddle, but she didn't complain. Fear sharpened resolve like a whetstone. They rode out with no lantern, letting the dim starlight guide their way. The ranch faded behind them, swallowed by the landscape. Up ahead stretched miles of open ground, sagebrush plains, dry washes, distant ridges. And beyond those ridges lay the river canyon, where Carson hid himself from the world. The air was cold enough to sting. Jake stole glances at Eliza, making sure she didn't fall or faint. But she held on with a determination far stronger than her frail appearance suggested. "Jake," she said quietly after some time, her voice nearly lost in the wind. "Do you think Margaret knew they would kill her?" Jake hesitated. "Hard to say. Some folks speak up knowing the cost. Others don't think monsters walk around wearing a priest's collar." Eliza shuddered. "She only wanted to protect the girls. Then we're gonna finish what she started." They reached the old wagon trail leading toward the canyon. The sky was turning a pale blue, signaling the first hint of sunrise. That was dangerous daylight, meant they could be spotted from miles away. Jake slowed his horse, scanning the horizon. He knew enough about being hunted to recognize when eyes were on him. But the land remained still, silent except for the rustle of dry grass. Eliza touched the rosary hidden beneath her coat. "Do you think Carson will tell us everything?" "If he knows what's good for him," Jake muttered. "But Carson ain't a coward. Whitmore tried to break him once. Didn't succeed." As the canyon cut deeper into view, the terrain shifted. Rocks jutted from the earth like jagged teeth, and the air cooled. Birds circled overhead, vultures, mostly waiting for something to die. Eliza gripped the reins tighter. "Jake, do you ever feel like something is following us?" Jake didn't answer right away, because he did. And the feeling was getting stronger. The canyon swallowed sound as Jake and Eliza descended along the narrow path carved by decades of floodwaters. The walls rose steep on both sides, streaked with ochre and gray, turning the world into a long stone corridor. Jake kept his hand near the rifle sling. This kind of terrain worked both ways. You could hide easy, but so could anyone hunting you. Carson's shack came into view at the base of the canyon, perched beside a bend in the shallow river. The structure looked half-collapsed, boards warped, roof sagging. Smoke trickled faintly from a crooked chimney, thin, hesitant, like whoever lived inside wanted the world to think they weren't home. Jake stopped his horse behind a cluster of boulders. "Stay here," he whispered. Eliza didn't argue. Her eyes were fixed on the shack with a mix of hope and fear-hope that Carson was alive, fear that he wasn't. Jake approached on foot, boots quiet on the sand. When he reached the porch, he knocked once firm, steady. At first, nothing. Then a tired voice rasped from inside. "Go away." "Carson," Jake called softly. "It's Marston. I need to talk." A heavy pause followed. Then a shuffling of steps. The door creaked open a few inches, revealing a gaunt, gray-bearded man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You shouldn't be here," Carson whispered harshly. "They'll follow you." "They already are," Jake said. "We need your help." Carson's gaze flicked past Jake toward the canyon path, then to the horses where Eliza waited. Recognition hit him like a blow. His face tightened. "She made it out?" He croaked. Eliza slid off her horse and approached slowly. "Carson, Margaret trusted you." The old man's expression broke grief, guilt, and something like relief washing over him all at once. He opened the door wider. "Get inside, quick." The shack's interior was cramped but orderly. Books stacked in leaning towers, papers stuffed into crates, a small oil lamp burning low. Carson locked the door behind them and drew the curtains shut. "I knew this day would come," he muttered. "Margaret. She said someone would survive long enough to seek me out." Eliza stepped closer. "The records, did she give them to you?" Carson nodded slowly. "She did. And I hid them where Whitmore's dogs would never search." He bent down, pried up a loose floorboard, and pulled out a wrapped bundle of journals, letters, and ledgers. "Everything is in here. Proof of beatings, theft, threats, and of what Collins did that night." Jake felt a cold weight settle in his gut. "Then we have what we need." Carson shook his head. "You have more than that. You have targets on your backs. Whitmore knows someone helped Margaret. Collins knows you're hiding the girl. They'll burn this canyon to ash to stop the truth." As if summoned by his words, a distant echo thundered through the canyon hooves. Fast, many. Eliza's face drained of color. Jake grabbed his rifle. "They found us." The sound of galloping hooves ricocheted off the canyon walls, multiplying until it seemed an entire army was bearing down on them. Jake moved first, swift, controlled, already calculating the terrain. There were only two exits from Carson's shack, the front door and the narrow back path leading deeper into the canyon. Neither one offered much hope. "Carson," Jake said, loading a fresh round into his rifle, "how many ways in or out of this place?" Carson grabbed a battered revolver from a shelf. "Only the river pass, but it narrows too damn much. A man tries it on horseback, he'll break his neck. On foot, maybe. Then we go on foot," Jake said. Eliza clutched the bundle of Margaret's records to her chest. "If they catch us." "They won't," Jake cut in, his voice iron steady, even though adrenaline hammered through him. "Move." Carson doused the lamp, plunging the shack into dim morning gray shadows. The three of them slipped, out the back door just as the first. Silhouettes appeared, atop the canyon ridge deputies, rifles slung across their backs, scanning the ground like hunters who already smelled blood. Jake led the way along the river, its thin trickle cutting a winding path through the canyon floor. The water darkened their boots and muffled their steps. Behind them, voices rose calling, shouting orders, men fanning out. "Spread wide." "She's here. I know she's here." Eliza flinched at the sound of his voice. Jake placed a steadying hand on her arm. The canyon gradually tightened. the walls closing in until the sky overhead became nothing more than a narrow ribbon. Carson limped faster than Jake expected for a man his age, his breath wheezing but determined. Fear had a way of lending strength. They reached the start of the river pass, a narrow crack between two massive boulders. It was barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through at a time. Jake pushed Carson forward. Go! Carson slid into the gap, scraping his arms on the rock. Eliza followed, clutching the records, her breath sharp with panic. Jake was halfway through when the first gunshot cracked through the canyon. Shards of stone exploded beside him. "Jake!" Eliza cried, reaching back through the narrow opening. "I'm fine," he grunted, pulling himself through the rest of the way. Another bullet ricocheted off the rocks behind him, sending sparks into the air. On the other side, the canyon widened again, but not by much. Twisted dead trees leaned over the riverbed, and jagged stones offered cover, if only for a minute. Carson pointed ahead. "There's a cave. Not far. We can lose them in the rock maze." Jake nodded. "Move, they're close." Behind them, Collins's voice bellowed, "Bring me the girl alive. The others do what you want." The words echoed like a curse, and the chase began again. Jake pushed Eliza and Carson ahead while he covered their backs, firing short, controlled shots toward the canyon bend. The deputies scattered behind rocks, their shouts bouncing off the stone walls like angry spirits. Each echo made it impossible to tell exactly where the next bullet would come from. "Keep moving," Jake yelled. Carson limped as fast as his battered leg allowed, breath ragged, eyes wide with the grim certainty of a man who'd lived too long with fear. Eliza held Margaret's record so tightly her knuckles turned white, but she didn't slow, not even when a bullet sliced a chip of rock inches from her head. The cave appeared ahead, a ragged hole in the canyon wall, half hidden by a pile of dead brush and a leaning cedar trunk. Jake grabbed Eliza's arm and dragged her inside first. Carson stumbled in after her. Jake followed, pulling branches to obscure the entrance. Darkness swallowed them whole. The only sound inside was the rapid breathing of three people who knew death was standing just outside. "Stay quiet," Jake whispered. "Sound travels in here." Eliza nodded, though tears glimmered in her eyes. Carson collapsed onto a rock, clutching his revolver with trembling fingers. Outside, the deputy's footsteps crunched along the riverbed. "Fan out," Collins called. "They're close, I can feel it." His voice seeped into the cave like poison. Eliza pressed a hand against her mouth to keep from making a sound. Jake steadied her shoulder, then motioned deeper into the darkness. The cave wound inward like the throat of some ancient creature. Narrow passages branched left and right, creating a labyrinth of jagged stone. Old miners had carved some of it decades ago. The rest had been shaped by time itself. Jake led them through the narrowest gaps, trusting instinct more than memory. Carson whispered, barely audible, "They'll follow us." "Collins ain't stupid." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But he's angry. Angry men make mistakes." They reached a wider chamber, where pale light dripped through cracks in the ceiling. Here, the walls glimmered faintly with mineral dust, giving the cavern an eerie silver glow. Eliza leaned against the stone. "Jake, how long can we hide?" "As long as we need to," Jake answered. But he knew hiding wouldn't solve anything. Not with Collins hunting them like wounded prey. Voices echoed through the tunnels closer now. Jake raised his rifle. Carson touched his arm. "We can't keep running. You know that." Jake met the old man's eyes. Carson was right. They had Margaret's records. They had proof. They just needed a way to survive long enough to use it. Eliza stepped forward, trembling but resolute. "If we escape this, we expose them in front of the whole town. No more shadows." Jake nodded slowly. "Then we make our stand smart." The echoes grew louder, footsteps entering the cave. Jake chambered around, breath steady. "The moment they come into view," he whispered, "we end this on our terms." They escaped the canyon just before dusk, bruised, exhausted, and still alive only because Collins and his men lost their way in the cave labyrinth. Jake recognized the moment the echoes of pursuit finally faded when the air shifted, and only the distant wind filled the silence behind them. They didn't stop until the canyon walls fell away and the prairie opened before them, wide, empty, and indifferent. Carson bent over, hands bracing his knees. "We got lucky." Jake shook his head. "Luck runs out. We need more than that now." Eliza held the bundle of records tight against her chest, as if they were the only thing keeping her standing. "Jake, how do we make the town believe us?" "Whitmore controls half of them. Collins controls the rest. We don't need them to believe us right away," Jake replied. "We just need them to hear the truth where Whitmore can't shut it down." Carson wiped sweat and dust from his brow. "The only place that's public enough is the square. The well ceremony tomorrow, everyone will be there." Jake looked at him sharply. "Ceremony?" "A blessing," Carson said with a bitter twist of his mouth. "Whitmore's favorite show. He'll stand on the steps of the mission and preach about purity and obedience, while Collins prowls the crowd. It's perfect." Eliza's breath trembled. "Perfect for us. Or for them." "For us," Jake said. "If Whitmore wants a crowd, we'll give him one. And we'll give him something he can't drown in scripture." They rode through the night, skirting the road to avoid running into deputies. The lights of Dodge City flickered in the distance, warm, familiar, and yet suddenly tainted with the knowledge of what lived within its walls. Jake felt something tighten in his chest as they approached. He'd known this town his whole life, but tonight it felt like enemy territory. They reached the outskirts at dawn. Smoke curled from chimneys. Merchants prepared their stalls. People began to gather near the mission, oblivious to the storm heading their way. Jake pulled his horse behind an abandoned livery stable. "We go on foot from here, and we stick together." Eliza nodded, though fear danced in her eyes. Carson handled the records carefully, as if holding dynamite. They slipped into the crowd quietly. Jake scanned every face, every badge, every shadow. Collins's deputies were already posted leaning against buildings, pretending to look casual. Wolves in plain sight. Eliza took a shaky breath. "Jake, once this starts, there's no turning back." Jake laid a steady hand on her shoulder. "Good, because turning back never fixed anything." The mission bell rang overhead. Whitmore stepped onto the platform, and the moment of reckoning began. Whitmore's voice rose above the murmurs of the gathered townsfolk, preaching about devotion, charity, and the sanctity of the mission. His words, polished and rehearsed, carried authority. Collins stood nearby, chest puffed, a smirk playing on his lips. They believed no one could challenge them in this public spectacle. Jake, Eliza, and Carson positioned themselves at the back of the crowd, hidden among the merchants and early arriving townspeople. Eliza's hands shook as she held Margaret's records, but her eyes burned with determination. The papers contained everything: the beatings, the embezzlement, the threats, the abuses, all neatly documented. The truth had a weight heavier than any gun. Jake leaned close. "When I nod, you step forward." Eliza swallowed and nodded. Her heart raced. Fear and courage warred within her. Carson's eyes flicked between the platform and the crowd, his face pale but resolute. "They won't silence you now," he whispered. Jake scanned the square. Whitmore's disciples, the town officials, and ordinary citizens filled every corner. Some faces were curious, some wary, but all were expectant. Whitmore gestured toward the mission, raising his hands in a display of false piety. The moment had come. Jake gave the subtle nod. Eliza stepped forward, clutching the bundle of records. The crowd stirred, puzzled by the sudden movement. Whitmore's eyes narrowed. "I have something to share," Eliza's voice, though trembling, carried through the square. "Something no one has dared to reveal until now." Gasps spread. The congregation shifted uneasily. Whitmore's confident posture faltered. Collins tensed, recognizing the girl from the mission, the one he thought he'd control. Eliza began unwrapping the records. These documents were kept by Sister Margaret, who tried to expose the crimes hidden in this mission. Whitmore, the priest, and Sheriff Collins used faith as a shield to hide abuse, theft, and violence against the innocent. Jake stepped beside her, hand resting on the rifle at his side, not for threat, but as a reminder they wouldn't back down. Carson distributed copies of the records to several merchants and witnesses, ensuring no single person could destroy all evidence. The murmurs escalated into uproar. Citizens Reed whispered and pointed. Whitmore's voice faltered. Collins barked orders, but confusion had taken hold. A few deputies tried to intervene, but the town now demanded answers. Citizens surrounded the platform, shouting for the truth. Whitmore's face went pale. "This is lies," he barked. Jake stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "No lies. The truth was hidden too long. Now everyone sees it." Collins, seeing the tide of the crowd turn, paled and finally stammered, unable to maintain control. Townspeople called for lawmen to act. Sheriff deputies tried to resist, but it was too late. The square was alive with justice,